All right, everybody. Good morning. We have made it to yet another Monday, another week, and we are working on finishing up on this draft stuff. Should be able to get it done in the next, I'd say, week and a half. Should be able to at least wrap up our look at the positions, look at the individual players, and then we can start working towards a final conclusion before we get to draft day. So today we're going to do left tackle. And first of all, let me just say it's a pretty good left tackle class overall, but it's not necessarily one Seahawks fans are going to be super interested in. I know that. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why left tackle is not a high priority for the Seahawks right now. If there's any position we won't be looking at this offseason at this point, it's probably left tackle right alongside punter and kicker. That's not where we need assistance. You got Charles Cross starting. I know he missed a lot of last season with an injury, but when he did play, he mostly played well once he was able to get into game flow, showed improvement, showed promising things. He's a top 10 pick just a couple years ago. You're not giving up on that guy already. You're not throwing him away. You're not planning for life without him yet. He still has 2 years left on the rookie deal, plus the 5th-year option. So there's no need to be thinking about things like that. And then behind him, you have Stone Forsythe, who actually played well last year as a backup for Charles Cross. Also played a little bit of right tackle and played fine. So you're not thinking about an imminent need for a new backup because Forsythe is still on his rookie deal. And you brought back George Fant, who can play left tackle, even if we're mostly thinking about him as a right tackle. So there's no need to be messing around with the left tackle crop this year. However, while we're here, I want to talk about everybody. As much as possible, I want to cover every single possibility, even though I think this is not a real possibility, especially these guys at the top. However, like I've said, you don't know where these guys are going to end up playing. Some of these guys may end up moving to right tackle. They might move to left guard. They might move even further inside than that. Sometimes it takes years for these guys to find their position. Justin Britt was a second-round pick for the Seahawks. We tried him at tackle, tried him at guard, finally tried him at center, and he actually was pretty good there. So sometimes it takes a while to figure things out. So don't rule anything out. Never rule anything out when it comes to offensive linemen. It's hard to tell where they're going to end up until they actually end up there at the NFL level. So we are going to dig into left tackle here, and we're going to talk about the big guns first, the guys who are probably going to be top, I'd say, at least 20 picks. One guy's definitely going to be a top 10 pick. So cream of the crop. Joe Alt has become more or less consensus the number one left tackle in this draft. Wasn't always like that. Notre Dame guy, 21 years old, so young. He's massive, 6'9", 321 pounds, so he's got like right tackle size. He's got, I mean, that you would normally look at that and go, oh, that's probably going to be a right tackle or something, but no, he's a left tackle. 34 and a quarter arms, 10-inch hands, so he's a big dude. He's bigger than an average left tackle, but it doesn't work against him. He can move. 40 time was great. 10-yard split was great. The vert was the only thing that wasn't exactly impressive. 28 inches for a vert is not very good for a tackle, but broad jump was big, so he does have some explosion. Change of directions on point. 94th percentile on his 3-cone. 20-yard shuttle was great as well. 90th percentile, 27 BP reps. Every big board has him in the top 10. 4 of the 6 have him in the top 5. The database puts him at 8th. So should be in the top 10 for sure. And he's become basically the consensus best offensive lineman in this draft. He's had 2 excellent seasons for Notre Dame. 90 plus PFF grades both years. 1 sack and 5 total QB pressures last year. Allowed 8 the year before, 0 sacks. So the performance has been on point. So he's a right tackle body with left tackle athleticism. So whatever you want, he can do. He can move. He can play in a phone booth. He can do it all. He's also got NFL bloodlines. His father was a pro offensive lineman. He was I think, Iowa. And then he was taken in the first round by the Kansas City Chiefs. So his father has NFL roots. So Joe Alt knows what's up. He's a fluid mover. When he's shuffling laterally, he's really good at mirroring. He's really good at staying in front of pass rushers, sticking with them when they try to get around him. Just shuffling around until they actually make contact. He's athletic enough to play in space. The testing numbers do not lie. You can have him peeling up to the second or third level to lay blocks. You can have him as a pull blocker. You can have him hitting backside blocks. He can do it all. Very quick going from snap to stance. He rockets up into his stance very quickly. Really hard to get the jump on him. Really hard to get around him before he gets ready, because he's going to be the first guy ready most of the time. He's got a high football IQ. Understands how to pick up blitzes and stunts and twists. You throw complex pressure packages at him. He has a good understanding of what to do and when to do to mitigate it. And he's got the athleticism and lateral agility to handle speed, but he can also anchor down pretty well against power rushers. So there's not really going to be much you can throw at him that is going to throw him off his game. He's probably a little better against speed, but that's good if you're going to be playing left tackle, right? You're dealing with the speedier edge rushers typically when you play on that side. Some of the issues to worry about with Joe Alt, nothing big. His punches, he does this, and this is going to be something I come back to a couple times during these videos. He does like a two-handed punch, which is, it's kind of weird. It leaves your chest vulnerable, and sometimes he can lose a rep because he tried to do a two-hand punch. Sometimes his punches miss, sometimes his punches are ineffective. So his punches are still a work in progress. Some poor technique leads to losing balance, like when he's trying to make contact with a defender for a block. He'll bend at the waist. He'll do a little bit of that. He'll do a little bit of stuff where he's like a little over-aggressive and it puts him out of position. So that's something that he's got to work on as well. And he is 6'9", right? At 6'9", leverage can be a problem. I don't think it's a huge problem the way it would be with some people, but when you're 6'9" and you're going up against defenders that are 5 inches shorter, leverage is an issue. So that's something he's going to have to watch for and something he's going to have to improve on. So there are things that Joe Alt has to make progress on, but this is, I don't want to keep using the term generational, and I don't think Joe Alt is generational, but he's somewhere below that. He is a typical run-of-the-mill top flight left tackle prospect in a draft. Like, you look at most drafts, they have a Joe Alt caliber player, but that player usually goes in the top 10 because they're so desirable. So at the start of the year, Joe Alt was a pretty firm number 2 on the left tackle list behind our next guy, who we're going to talk about in a minute here. At this point, it's become clear that he's just a little bit better, a little bit more potential, a little bit more upside, a little bit more athleticism. Not by much, but it's become relatively clear that he is the top guy. The only thing I'm worried about with him is his height. If he can work around his height issues, everything else is fixable. He can improve his punches. He can improve his technique. He can improve his aggressiveness. And when I say improve aggressiveness, I just mean harness it a little bit better. You don't bend at the waist when you're trying to engage with a defensive lineman or a blitzer. That's stuff that can all get better. So he's only 21, by the way. He should get better. So I would say Joe Alt's probably worthy of being a top 5 pick. I'd put him in that top 5, I think. I'm going to put together my final big board. Maybe he's in 6th, right? But basically a top 5 guy. The flexibility of him maybe being able to play on the right side as well is just an added bonus, but I do think it's valuable. All right, so that's your generally considered top left tackle in this draft. Now let's go to the guy who was considered the top left tackle for most of the year, and then in recent months has just really kind of slipped to the side here. I'm talking about Olumuyiwa, or Olu, as many call him, Fashanu, Penn State guy. So what exactly happened here with Fashanu? Because he was a top 5 pick, according to most everybody, for most of the year. He had a relatively good year overall. It wasn't stellar like Alt. And he just keeps slipping. What's up? So he's young, 21 when the season starts. Not quite as big as Alt. Maybe that's part of it. 6'6", 312 pounds, 34-inch arms, small hands. Are we worried about the small hands? Is he going to have to grip the football playing left tackle? I don't know. The testing was good, not great, like Alt's was, but he killed the vert, and he had a really nice broad, too. So he's explosive, decent speed, good speed, decent acceleration. And yet I'm looking at these big boards, and we got a couple of them that have him in the bottom half of the first round. PFF, ESPN, Walter Football all put him outside the top 16. Now, Tank puts him at 10. CBS and Draft Network still have him as a super blue chipper. But the aggregate has him all the way down at 15, so he has faded. What happened? This is a guy who He doesn't have the greatest PFF scores, but he's allowed 0 sacks over the last 2 years. He's allowed 1 hit over the last 2 years combined. 1 QB hit. He allows some hurries. And he's protecting some garbage quarterbacks, sorry to say. Like quarterbacks that are not good. And he's keeping them clean, which is, I think, harder than some people realize. So, Fashanu gives incredibly high effort until the whistle blows. He's got a strong lower body. You're not going to push him off the spot. He's going to root down. He's going to anchor, and you're not getting him off that spot. He's got a lot of strength in him, maybe even more than Alt. He's got the mobility to play in space and block moving targets. You can put him on linebackers at the second level, and he's going to make the block. He's going to get out in front of the play and find a way to get it done in that capacity. He mirrors pass rushers really well. He's actually really good in pass protection. His pass protection sets are really nice, really good at staying in front of his man, really good at not allowing him to get to the peak of the pocket first, really good at not allowing him to use his speed to get around him. He's got great footwork overall. He's got great feet just in general. He uses his punches expertly to take control of reps as a left tackle. Really strong, really well-placed, powerful punches overall. So the upside is there for him to be an elite left tackle in this league, I think. There are issues. There are concerns with Fashanu. A lot of them are actually similar to the ones I have with Alt. He doesn't sink his hips and loses leverage. He's 6'6", which is 3 inches shorter than Alt, but I think the concern there is still the same. You got to sink your hips. You got to be able to be the low man. You got to get underneath the pads of your man, or else you're going to lose. Not going to generate a ton of movement on drive blocks. He doesn't have that kind of strength. He has the strength to anchor. He doesn't necessarily have the strength to clear a lot of space in the run game. So there's that. And while he's a really good pass rush mirror, I think one thing that does have a little bit of success against him is when you're an edge rusher, you're trying to get around him, and then you counter back to the inside. He struggles a little bit to recover, to get in front of you on the inside move. So sometimes he can give up the inside, and that's how he gives up some of his pressures. Again, it seems to me something that is fixable. He's only 21. So those are the main issues that Fashanu's bringing to the table here. I don't know if he'll ever be a great drive blocker. I don't know if he'll ever be a mover in run blocking. But overall, this is still a wonderful prospect. I think his drop-off is a little exaggerated. I don't think he's far away from what Joe Alt is, if that's who we're comparing him to. Maybe there's a little less potential for run blocking, but I don't think it's that far off. And I think that a lot of the same problems that Alt brings are the ones that Fashanu brings. So Alt has a little bit more stud potential, I suspect, but I really like Fashanu. I still am high on him. I'd put him in the back of the top 10. So behind Alt, but not dropped to the point where everyone else has him. I would still say he's a top 10 guy in this draft. Maybe not by much, but I think he's there. Still got prototypical left tackle size. I mean, this is basically like a prototypical left tackle. 6'6", 312 pounds. That's basically right on target. So those would be the two left tackles that are likely to be first-round picks in this draft, Fashanu and Alt. So let me know what you think about those guys. I know neither guy's going to be a Seahawk. Although I will say this. If Fashanu does fall to our pick at 16, which some of the big boards thinks he may, hard for me to pass that up. Hard for me to pass that up. You'll find a way to make it work. You'll find a way to make it work. And I think that's good value. So I'm not completely ignoring that, but I do admittedly think it's unlikely. Like, his weakness is drive blocking and his strength is pass protection. Is that going to work moving him to guard? Probably not. Can you move cross to guard? Probably not. So, admittedly, it would be a little bit awkward. But at the same time, I see the value. All right. That's it for this one. Let me know what you think down below. More left tackles coming later. We'll move on to the second round guys next. But this is the best of the best. Let me hear it.